Thank you for joining us again and welcome back to our channel. If you are joining for the first time, we appreciate your time. Listen folks, like I said, geopolitics is a brutal game and election has consequences. It is interesting that Europe is getting the message that the current comments by the United States of America's president to the country of South Africa with regards to the land issues and South Africa's internal concerns and issues. It sounds as if it's much nicer. The country of Germany has come out clear to remind the United States that you cannot interfere in our internal issues. I think this geopolitical arrogance, it's beginning to play in a number of countries around the world. And if Germany can come out and say, do not interfere and talk about our personal issues or our internal challenges, it is of significance for the global community to face on what the next 4 years is going to look like in the strategic engagement around the world.
That is why we will not accept outsiders intervening in our democracy, in our elections, in the democratic formation of opinion in favour of this party. You can't do that, especially not between friends and allies. We firmly reject this. We will decide for ourselves what happens for our democracy.
From the German perspective, adding insult to injury, JD Vance went on to meet with the leader of the Alternative for Germany party, Alice Weidel, a leader that Elon Musk prominently has embraced as well. So this all basically adds fire to the German perceptions that this is undue U.S. interference in Germany's domestic politics, the U.S. trying to impose and dictate how Germany should run its long-standing democracy. So these are fiery words. And beyond Germany, you also had the French foreign minister.
Make no mistake, South Africa has pushed back with regards to the United States approach, with the current Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, refusing to attend the G20. It is important. It goes back to if you do have interference in comments or in any other particular way. You would have noticed that in the country of Guinea, with regards to their engagement with the country of France, when the current leader came out and said foreign interference has a huge influence with regards to the growth and political situation in the country. It affects development. That's the reason why the Guinean president came out after the coup and said this.
It's our duty to save the country and bring the Ghanaian people together. We will put a system in place for all of the people to come together, because a political system that is not inclusive is a system that is not based on peace.
Why am I saying this? It is important to note that the German Chancellor has come out really clear and denounced America's Vice President, Mr. JD Vance, comments in the Munich Security Conference in Germany, that they would not tolerate and they would not accept the United States perception of how they want to approach this particular relationship. And it's of vital interest that Europe should wake up. It is advisable that Europe is beginning to understand that the countries of the continent of Africa are pushing back to the United States of America's strategic engagement and relationship. They are not foolish. It's as a result that they have been feeling the heat from Simon Town to the United Nations Security Council, to the United Nations vote, and to the recent cutting of aid to a number of African nations. And more importantly, a very strategic partner in the continent of Africa, South Africa, has come under pressure. Now, for the German Chancellor to come out and remind the United States sitting Vice President comments that he made in Germany, that at this moment, Germany will not entertain, will not tolerate such behavior from someone they consider strategic partner. It is a wake-up call for Europe.
European governments have hit back at JD Vance after the US Vice President lectured political and military leaders on free speech at the security conference in Munich. Instead of talking about Russia or Ukraine, Vance accused Europe of stifling freedom of expression and urged governments to cooperate with the far right. Well, to unpack everything that's been going on at the conference, our international affairs commentator Doug Herbert joins me now on set. Hi, Doug. Let's begin with that JD Vance speech, because Europe is still reeling from those comments yesterday, not just because of the content, but it's also, because it's not the speech they were expecting.
Not at all. It would be hard to overstate the degree to which this speech was a seismic sort of speech for Europe, for the world. And departing from all norms, not just of civility and diplomatic niceties, but just norms that have been norms of decency and humanity in Europe, shared values between the U.S. and Europe. Look, what did JD Vance do? He essentially made a raw meat, hardline MAGA campaign-style speech to one of the most prominent international economic forums, security forums in the world, in Munich. He lashed out against what he saw as European retreat on free speech, so basically putting himself foursquare behind that absolute free speech pillar that also espoused by Elon Musk. He also lashed out at immigration in Europe, calling immigration and migrants far more of a problem in Europe than anything posed by perceived aggressors such as Russia or China, any sort of aggression from them. But what really raised the hackles was him basically, and this is taking aim really at Germany a week before German elections, very contested German elections, volatile German elections, ordering Germany basically to open its doors to far-right parties, let other voices in. He was obviously talking about, he didn't say by name, the Alternative for Germany, AfD party. This is a party that has been deemed extremist by Germany's own intelligence agency. This is a party, some of whose members have been convicted of using Nazi slogans. This is not just sort of some innocent, let them alone type of party that has some opposing views. Olaf Scholz, the German Chancellor, and I want you to hear what he said basically, but he defended what he calls Germany's firewall, something that Vance attacked, a firewall against cooperation with these types of extremist parties. And he said there's a reason that we have these firewalls. It's something called the Holocaust. And he said the vast majority of Germans are opposed to cooperating with parties that glorify or justify Nazi-era, methods and slogans. Listen to what Olaf Scholz had to say in very strident pushback against JD Vance.
That is why we will not accept outsiders intervening in our democracy, in our elections, in the democratic formation of opinion in favour of this party. You can't do that, especially not between friends and allies. We firmly reject this. We will decide for ourselves what happens for our democracy.
From the German perspective, adding insult to injury, JD Vance went on to meet with the leader of the Alternative for Germany party, Alice Weidel, a leader that Elon Musk prominently has embraced as well. So this all basically adds fire to the German perceptions that this is undue U.S. interference in Germany's domestic politics, the U.S. trying to impose and dictate how Germany should run its long-standing democracy. So these are fiery words. And beyond Germany, you also had the French foreign minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, also saying basically free speech is very much guaranteed here in Europe. Others suggesting, such as the man tipped to be the next German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, him suggesting that it's rich of JD Vance to suggest that Europe is trying to restrict freedom and push back on free speech.
And African governments and officials of strategic nations have already gotten that signal, starting with the country of South Africa. Egypt has pushed back in regards to the Gaza situation, and more importantly, how the Egyptian government and Jordan have perceived what the current United States of America president is saying in regards to relocating the Palestinian. It is interesting how the next 4 years will look like. The United States of America will continue to understand that the geopolitical environment has shifted, that countries have engaged in other strategic partners. The German Chancellor was reacting to this particular speech because Germany felt threatened as a result of a very important ally that they have, considering the United States of America. And why it is relevant? It is relevant because it came at a time where the Munich conference is a very important global event that you see partners come together to talk about the current challenges in the geopolitical arena. However, the current situation between Ukraine and Russia has also overshadowed the conference as the current president, Mr. Zelensky, came out and warned that there will be no negotiation behind Ukraine's back. and Europe should pay attention. Let's listen to what he said.
Ukraine will never accept deals made behind our backs without our involvement. And the same rule should apply to all of Europe. No decisions about Ukraine without Ukraine, no decisions about Europe without Europe. Europe must have a seat at the table when decisions about Europe are being made.
It is important that we know that the geopolitical landscape around the world has shifted so much, and countries are beginning to fight for their own interests. With the current United States of America delegation and administration, who are beginning to dismantling a lot of geopolitical relationships and partnerships from around the world. It is a wake-up call. A number of countries were beginning to look at their relationship with the United States to an extent. Where does it fit in and where it doesn't fit in? The African Growth and Opportunity Act, where countries like Rwanda and Uganda have been put on alert in a number of areas as a result of them fighting to have their own market grow. The United States, to an extent, is engaging African countries from a strategic point that does not sit well with regards to the continent's own geopolitical perspective. Why I'm saying this? It's important because the countries of the Sahel are facing numerous challenges, and the country of Niger that kicked the United States out of its country and territory, to point out, and dismantling or asking the US to dismantle the over $100 million drone base in the city of Aljazeera. These were vital times, and these countries are talking about the sovereignty, which is important. Looking at Marco Rubio's perspective on global issues, the speech that Mr. Vance made in the country of Germany shook a lot of European partners who were they were shocked. And that to them does not make sense to an extent. That's the reason why a number of European countries have huge reservation with regards to their engagement. So if the world is seeing South Africa pushing back and Niger pushing back to the United States of America and Egypt is slamming the United States of America's approach, this should not be as a surprise. It is important to know that the continent of Africa has already read things in the future, what's going to happen in the next 4 years. So let me know in the comment section what you think with regards to why Europe should now understand why the continent of Africa is pushing back to its strategic partners like the United States. Despite the huge trade volumes between Egypt and the United States of America and South Africa and the United States of America, the US still continue to pressure these countries. Let me know in the comment section what you think regards to this particular geopolitical shift that has vibrated all over the world, and where should the continent of Africa sit, and why the current German Chancellor's comment and pushback sends a clear indication that Africa is on a good path with regards to a geopolitical situation in the global community. I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
That is why we will not accept outsiders intervening in our democracy, in our elections, in the democratic formation of opinion in favour of this party. You can't do that, especially not between friends and allies. We firmly reject this. We will decide for ourselves what happens for our democracy.
From the German perspective, adding insult to injury, JD Vance went on to meet with the leader of the Alternative for Germany party, Alice Weidel, a leader that Elon Musk prominently has embraced as well. So this all basically adds fire to the German perceptions that this is undue U.S. interference in Germany's domestic politics, the U.S. trying to impose and dictate how Germany should run its long-standing democracy. So these are fiery words. And beyond Germany, you also had the French Foreign Minister, Jean-Noël Barrot.